Hi, y'all. So we're going to continue our conversation regarding the book clubs, really focusing on the fact books, the nonfiction books. We're going to go through this a little faster, so if you want to catch some of the details, some of the nuance of how we're going to run this, check the video that we did earlier this morning. The links are going to be below. But again, I'm really excited about these book clubs. We've put a lot of effort into them. So yeah, it should be a fun ride. So as usual, always want to say thank you for watching. Thanks for being a part of this. We have a couple videos planned for next week, really focusing on LiftPort's history, specifically looking into some of global space elevator history. And we're going to continue the work that we're doing on national U.S. policies. So if you like what you're seeing, please like, share, and subscribe. And we've been doing this for about a month now. We've posted 11 videos, and we're seeing a lot of activity. So we're really grateful to y'all for doing that. If you like what we're doing, there's a safe bet that somebody that you know also likes what we're doing. So it would be great if you would share that with other people. We'd appreciate that. Okay, thanks. So as usual, we're going to the moon. And in order to do that, it gets pretty complicated. It's pretty hard to do that. And we always break the problem down into kind of four big parts, the four pillars. Hardware, business, outreach, and framework. And this is all about outreach. The whole reason that we built these book clubs was as a social experiment. Again, more information about that on the video prior. So let's get into it. When we started these videos a month ago, we had this grand scheme of what we were going to build out as part of our playlists. And what we got some feedback from y'all is that they wanted some changes. So instead of 2 book clubs, we actually evolved it into 3. One's definitely more technical. So here's what we're doing. By focusing on, you could say it's fact, but you could say it's nonfiction, right? What we decided to do was have a whole set of, I think, complementary content. I feel like some of these in the various book clubs are going to feed on each other. They are kind of designed with some forethought and how one piece of information layers onto another, and so hopefully you'll come with us on this particular journey. As I said several times, this is a social experiment. We don't know how the experiment's going to play out, but we're committed to getting through these books together. I think it's going to be a fun ride. So for our fact section, and this we had some pushback, which is why we changed it a little bit. We specifically decided to have books that were relevant, kind of to the world, kind of globally useful. We had intentionally chosen books that were not so narrowly focused on the elevators to be only useful to a few people. So that's why we chose this list. It's not a perfect list. There's no way to pick just 7 books that say, okay, this is what we're going to do, because there's a lot of choices that have to be made in selecting these books. So if there's pushback on this list, you know what? I'm with you. I don't feel like this is a complete list either, and I wrestled with a lot of these choices. So I'd love to have your feedback, but there's a billion books out there that could have made the list, and these are the 7 that did. So I think it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be educational. So I know that I'm going to take some heat for the first book being Machiavelli's The Prince. It was a conscious decision, And I'm not going to share why right now. I want that to be part of the conversation when we all meet virtually and have this conversation about the book. But I really think that this book tells us a lot of the things we need to know in order to build something truly innovative, truly fundamentally able to change the world. So this sounds like hyperbole. It's really not. I usually leave this book on my desk as a reminder that what we're doing is challenging, and so I hope you'll cut me some slack on this first one, and we'll dig into it together, and maybe you'll think I'm right by the time we meet up on this. The next book, High Frontiers, is a classic, and you could argue that this is the book that launched kind of the world that we're in now, the commercial space sector that we're in now, really can take its history from the High Frontier. And when we have this discussion, we're going to take this apart and kind of unravel its history a little bit and really show how this one book, Dr. O'Neill, shaped and adjusted the world that we're living in now. I think that's going to be a fun ride. And you know what? I've not actually read the whole book. I've read snippets of it here and there, and I even have a copy signed by O'Neill's former wife, and I felt like she had a contribution in this process, so I got to meet her, and she was surprised to be asked to sign it. But I've only actually read snippets of it, so I would say that I'm a follower of this belief system, but I want to actually dig into this and tackle it further. So I'm personally really interested in this one. And that one leads us to this. If you scan into this type a little closer, it says the High Frontier, an easier way. And that more modern, more updated version of the book is actually radically different than the first one. Tom Murata and Al Globus actually have won an award for this book, I think 2 years ago. It's only a 3-year-old book, so there's almost a 40-50 year span of time between the first High Frontier and this easier way High Frontier book. And a lot has changed, but that visionary passion and commitment, that hasn't changed. And it's also kind of really exciting to me to showcase this book, because Tom Murata was one of my first employees way back, I think in 2004, at the first version of LiftPort. So to see him evolve and grow as a human being, I think he was like 22 at the time, 21 at the time. Fast forward, somewhere around 15 years, a mortgage, a wife, 3 kids later, he's evolved into a true space professional in the field. So I think this book is going to be particularly fun. It's not focused on the Earth elevator. It's actually, which is where Murata worked for me when we were working on the Earth elevator. It's actually focusing on space stations. So infrastructure in space is vitally important. So I'm looking forward to this one. I think this one's going to be a fun read together. And then this one, the box, it's a little peculiar. It's a little out there. So just bear with us on this one. This one came to us from somebody that I really respect. Rob Meyerson was the president of Blue Origin, and he was one of the founding people there. He took that company from, I think it's somewhere around 10 or a dozen people, all the way up to north of 1,500 people over the span of a decade plus, and arguably Blue Origin is the company that it is because of his leadership. And so when a guy like that says, hey, I think this book, The Box, is pretty relevant to the space community, at first I was a little skeptical, but I ordered it, and I'm about a third of the way into this thing, and I'm so interested in what its conclusions are that I've decided to go ahead and put it into this book club. I think there are some really important lessons to be learned here, and we always talk about hardware business, outreach, and framework. Well, the box kind of blends all of those things. There are laws and policies. There's worker strikes. There's standards, right? All of those things come into play, and it doesn't seem at first like that's relevant to building an elevator on the moon. But as I said, I'm only a little ways into it, but I really can see that there's some connections there. So I'm curious where this one goes. I think we're all going to learn something unique here. And again, I really hope that the things you learn in this book club you can take out into your own world. Dr. Andrew Maynard's an interesting guy. I've known him about maybe 2006 or so is when we first met. We met while LiftPort was still working on carbon nanotubes and material sciences. He was running a program called the Woodrow Wilson Center for Scholars out in Washington, D.C., and it's a congressionally mandated think tank to look into the future. What kind of problems are we dealing with? And so we were looking at carbon nanotubes. That's how I met him a long time ago. Fast forward, he's a professor now, and he tackles risk. He from a professional perspective, risk is a more obscure problem than I realized. But this book of his is an interesting blend between the fictional ideas of movies and then the reality that we are living in now. And what he's trying to do is maybe take some lessons from film and apply them to our real world. So I only just recently, I guess I ordered this about 6 months ago. It's been sitting on my shelf for a while now, and I've read the dust cover and a couple key chapters, but this one's going to be great. I think it's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun read. This one might be a little controversial. Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson is a pretty great guy. Candidly, he's a really funny guy. He interviewed Tom Nugent and I back in about 2005 or 6 when we were building a lot of robots, and I was so starstruck in that interview I can barely string a complete sentence together. So he's a very bright, personable guy that it was just fun to be around. But he wrote a book about a year ago that has a very interesting link, a very interesting interconnect between the world of physics and my interest in space technology and the world of war and military and defense. And I thought that was a really interesting premise. I don't know where this is going to go, but y'all know that I'm really interested in the Space Force, the United States Space Force. So I'm curious if he ties any links like that together. So we're going to discover this one together. I don't even think I've read the dust cover. I think I've just read the blurb from Amazon. So we're going to explore this one together. I think it's definitely relevant to what we're doing, but I can't even give you a good preface because I don't know what's coming next. And then this is the final book, and I considered making it the first book, Machiavelli is pretty pessimistic. It's kind of dark. But Peter Diamandis is the guy who, one of 3 founders of International Space University, one of 4 founders for Singularity University. He and a few other people helped build out the X Prize Foundation. So this is a guy who has been at the forefront of this change in perception of the world and space. And so he wrote this book, I think it was 2012, talking about how the future's better than you think. And folks, right, we're dealing with plague, we're dealing with financial ruin. Greenland has an irrecoverable ice sheet. There's fires raging at near friends' houses in California. Right now, it seems pretty dark. There's global unrest. There's national. There's riots in the streets, and we have an election in 75 days. So there's a lot of tension in the world and in America. And I felt, maybe it's time to do something, read something that's actually good, right? Where the future is actually better than we think. And so I considered making this the first book. I chose not to, but I absolutely wanted it to be the last book, so that we end on an optimistic note, that we can in fact go and build this important and interesting future. So that's what we're doing. Those are our 7 books. Now, what we're hoping y'all will do is join us. Go to liftport.com. Click the tab in the right-hand corner about getting involved. There's a drop down to our book club. Sign up. You want to sign up for 1, 2, or 3? If you're super ambitious, sign up for all 3. That's going to be hard to do, by the way. That reading list is going to be hard to keep up with. But really, join us on this path. It's an exploration. There's some creativity there. We're going to go do something, I hope, that's pretty interesting. Read the books or don't read the books. This isn't a high school lit. You're not going to get in trouble if you don't turn your homework in. I was never particularly good at getting my homework done. So sign up, and then the real thing is participate, right? We're going to try and do this in a way where, we meet you at your living room virtually, and we hang out and talk about the ideas that are expressed in these various documents. So, join us. I think it should be a lot of fun. If you got questions, of course, please post them in the comments. We're not really looking for new book submissions. We've already gotten more than we can probably handle, but we will later on ask for additions. If you have other questions, again, just post them. Let me know what you're thinking, and if this is interesting to you, if you're new to our channel, then please check out the other stuff that we're doing. Next week we're going to post a lot of images and videos about some of the robots that we worked on, and we're going to talk more about Space Force and national policy. So stick with us. It's going to be great. It might be a bumpy ride with this book club, but I think it should be fun. Right on. Okay. Hey, thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.